us. So we're up there in the middle of nowhere, you know, it was very remote. And her and I, we would get along and then we wouldn't. And it would pretty much be my fault most of the times because I was just really bossy. I was a real typical oldest type A kind of child. And there were a lot of kind of added trauma thrown into the situation. So you can imagine it wasn't always great. Everything we had to play with was what we took up. There were no shops, there was no nothing. So we had a very set amount of toys, no replacements. What we took, we had, and that was it. One day she did something to tick me off. I don't remember what it was, but I was angry, righteously so, and nothing was seeming to be done about it, and I felt like something needed to be done. So I took her large, fluffy teddy bear. Remember those big ones? I don't know if they were over here. They were pretty popular in Australia at the time, big, and they always had a big bow on their neck. I took her fluffy teddy bear and I snipped the bow off. That'll show her. Bow gone. Right, I felt good. A couple of hours later, I went to play with our Barbies. We had two Barbie dolls. We loved those Barbie dolls. I went to pick up mine. She had, in retaliation, chopped off my Barbie's hair. Completely. There was no sewing it back on, destroyed. Yeah. Holding on to anger hurts us in the end so much more than we realize. Yeah, it still hurts a little bit. Rather be dead than alive because nothing I predicted is going to happen. It's a big statement to make, right? Yeah, it's a big statement to make. Does anyone remember the year 2000? Can't believe it's over 20 years ago. Feels like yesterday. There was so much hype, at least in Australia, leading up to the year 2000. Oh my goodness, I just finished high school at the time, so it is a while back now. But I remember it, you know, something big was going to happen, Jesus was coming soon, the computer systems worldwide were going to crash, you name it, everything was going to fall apart. And I was very, very concerned about it. Took it quite seriously, not in like a completely crazy kind of way, but you know, there was a lot to take in. I read the internet, I looked at it all. For some reason, I was alone. My family were away, so I was home alone, and I have to confess, I did fill up our bathtub with water. You just didn't know what was going to happen. I thought, if the world's going to end, if the computers are going to crash, I at least want access to water, so I filled up my bathtub. But leading up to that, there were books coming out. One of them was called Sunday's Coming, Ready or Not, Here He Comes. It was very focused on end of the world kind of stuff. And I was right there. I was raised Adventist, and I took very seriously Jesus' second coming. I remember even as a child getting ready. Like that must have been a phrase that was over and over again. So I remember just dreaming, well, I have to pack, you know. I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, as like a 5-year-old. So I was a very serious kid, I guess, in that way. And so I read those books too, and I took them very seriously. It heightened my study at the time, you know, trying to work out, making sure I would be ready. Ready or not, here he comes. But it was a study that had an underlying fear-based fuel to it. It kept me going. I was zealous even in my study. Focus. I was sincere about it. But there wasn't much joy attached, to be honest. And it was exhausting. It eventually petered out. No matter how sincere one is, when fear fuels that kind of zeal, the fruit is rarely good, long term. And there's nothing that I can remember particularly wrong with that book. I'm not, you know, bagging on those books. I don't have them anymore, so I can't reread them to check them. But back then, that was the kind of state I was in. And the other thing is that when I think back, when I was reading them, I was more excited about the signs and the imminence than I really was about God. You know? I was more excited about planning the wedding, about being the bride kind of thing than I was about the groom. You know, I just wasn't even thinking about that aspect to it. It was all everything else surrounding it. You know, like Jonah, I had become so focused on the message, more focused on the message than the God that the message was about. Yet the Lord is gracious. God, you my created being, let us reason together.